Kia ora anō, tātou katoa. I hope you appreciated the opportunity just to sit and maybe take in some of what Mark's keynote presentation had to offer. I don't know about you, it scares the shit out of me. But that's the younger generation, right? Okay, so let us move on to our next session, which is The Future is Young, Effective Youth Engagement, which I think is brilliant, coming off the back of Mark's presentation. And our next session will be hosted by Curative, a creative agency inspiring positive social change, who will draw on their experience of meaningful youth engagement through projects such as The Hive, Protect Your Breath, and Nurture the Future. Eddy, Curative's founder and director, leads projects that support young people to be heard, trusted and supported to shape the systems that impact them. Elliot works alongside young people to support engagement and conversations that lead to positive change for people and planet. Can you please welcome from Curative, Eddy Royal and Elliot Blythe to the stage.
All right, well, kia ora koutou, taku mihi kia koutou, he mihi mai oha, he mihi aroha ki te kaupapa o te rā no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Whew, what a big room. And we've all been sitting for a while and we've been chatting, but before we jump in and tell you a little bit about who we are, I just wondered if actually we just want to move our bodies for 2 seconds. So maybe we just stand up and stretch really, really high. For those who can, touch your toes. For those who don't, remember a time where you could. Shake it out, and we'll take our seats again.
Oh, yes,
feeling better?
Good. Feeling much better. Oh yeah.
Okay, because we're here to talk about the future being young, so we want you to be channeling that in your bodies while we're talking as well.
Feeling young.
Okay, so, ko waio, ko Pākehā me tangata tiriti ahau, no tēnā maka airana me kotirana uki tipuna, e tipu aki au ki Danny Burke, Ngaroa here.
Yes.
Ngaroa here, hora whenua, pōniki, e noho ana au ki Onihanga, ko Luke Royal taku tamahini, ko Gareth Royal tōku tāne, ko Eddy Royal tōku ingoa.
Kia ora koutou, ko Ele tōku ingoa, no Otapoti o. Otapoti? Oh, come on.
Danny Burke is in the house, but Dunedin is not. It's the fog.
It's the fog. My name's Elliot Blythe. I'm a strategist at Curative.
He sure is. And I'm Eddy. I'm founder and director of Curative. We're a creative agency. We only work on projects that are about creating positive social impact. And because we work on positive social impact, everything we do is about what the future is going to look like. And when we're thinking about the future, we have to think about our young people all of the time. And that's what we do. Elliot, you're still a young person yourself.
I am. Today's 1 month until my 25th birthday, and so next month I'm an old person. But for now, I'm still a young person. I'm holding on to it for all it's worth as well.
And in a moment, we're actually going to be joined by some of the young people who have been involved in our work. So just quickly, briefly, what do we mean when we say we're working on projects that are about creating positive social impact, and why do we involve young people so much? So our work, we're like an advertising agency or like a marketing agency, but we only work on projects that kind of impact our health or our well-being in a positive way. So the sorts of work we do are about making sure that young people's voices are heard by critical decision makers like you guys. We work on vaping harm reduction. We work on some really big and challenging conversations like how to look after our sexual health and well-being, how to make sure that our babies are born healthy and well. And that can be really hard to have those sorts of kōrero if you're not already in positive relationship. And if you're not already mindful and aware that your experience of the world is different to the experience of the communities that you're trying to talk to, that you're trying to motivate, and that you're trying to get to do something differently. And so at Curative, we fundamentally believe that people are the experts in their own experiences. And young people are full of expertise, and we're about to tell you a little bit about that. But before we do,
we want you to cast your mind back to when you were 16, when you were a real-life young person. That was year 11 or 12, and Form
5, Form 6, depending on how old you are.
I don't know what that means. But think about what were the things that you valued? What were the things that kept you up at night, or the things that sparked your interest in things?
Maybe have a 2-second conversation at your table. What were you doing when you were 15 or 16?
Yeah. little bit.
Do you want to bring them back or you want me to? You want to bring them back? You can do it.
So the world that you might have grown up is very different to the world that young people are living in now. And
Nice.
Thank you. Sort of like what Mark was saying, the world is very different now. Young people are growing up with social media that never switches off, with the climate crisis, with housing crises, with political instability, and a world that feels increasingly more chaotic. Right now, young people are about 20% of the population and 100% of the future, which was a cool stat until someone fact-checked us and told us that it was actually about 16.5% of the population, but still 100% of the future. There's no world in which the future doesn't involve young people today.
And so we talked a little bit about how important it is to remember that people are the experts in their own experiences. And it's really easy when we think about diversity, the sorts of voices that we want to include people who maybe come from a culture or a background or a gender that isn't the same as ours. But often when we think about young people, we do exactly what we just did then. We cast our mind back and we go, well, I was 16 once. And so I can remember that and I can design from that place. But as Mark said, and as Elliot's just re-illustrated, the world is different right now. And so young people right now are the only experts in what it means to be young now. And if we're working with other experts, think about the sorts of things that we do. We give them a really good brief. We ask them really good questions. We have clarity about how their input is going to help us towards the vision that we're trying to work towards or to realize the work program that we're doing. We make sure that we create an environment that's really comfortable to work in. We give them deadlines and deliverables. And we give them all the things that they should, that they need to be able to get there. Importantly, we pay them. And so with all of those things in mind, what we thought would be really useful to share before we bring some of the young folk who have been involved in a lot of our mahi up onto the stage to share their views and maybe answer some of your questions. There's 6 core principles that we hold in mind every single time that we are engaging young people. These engagement principles were designed by and with young people. And they've been tested and trialed and refined inside of our work. So, the first one, Elliot.
First one, most important, feed us. And we mean this, yes. We mean this both literally, there has to be kai on the table, but also in a sort of more metaphorical sense, that young people are hungry for knowledge, for connections, for advice, and they need that. And so if you want them in your picture, you need to feed them, both food and other things. It can't, at the same time though, feeding people cannot be the only way that you compensate them.
Absolutely. I mean, young people are enormously busy. We've just heard a lot about their use of social media, but actually, if you have a young person in your life, how much running around after them do you have to do? They've got sports, hopefully. They've got friends that they need to spend time with. They're probably holding down a part-time job. My gosh, they're studying and they're trying to get through the anxiety of getting through school or getting through university. They're applying for what their future is going to look like, whether that's jobs, whether that's their tertiary study, whether that's trying to figure out what their pathway for the future is. They're super busy. And so we need to make sure that when we're engaging them, we don't think that they're just waiting in the wings, ready for us to call out to them, hey, young person, want to help us out?
We do have young people waiting in the wings today, but that's an
exceptional
circumstance.
And I'm going to do that exact shtick in a minute, yeah. But we really need to make sure that we are valuing their time, that we are recognizing that if they're spending time with us, they're not spending time on something else that is equally, or if not far more important to them than whatever it is that we want them to be thinking about. So really valuing their time, being really clear on what it is that we're asking for them, paying them, remunerating them for that time, thinking about when and where you're going to do it. It might work for us to hold a session at 9 a.m. on a Monday, probably not going to work for most young people. So you have to think carefully about how we really and authentically value their time.
And also, just as important, is to decode the jargon. There was a time where you didn't know what an agenda was or what minutes were. I definitely remember being in the first meeting that I was, where people were talking about that, and I had no idea what was going on. Let alone if you're talking about a consultation framework for participatory delivery of a strategic idea of something, like, you need to break it down into words that actually make sense. You need to help young people make sense of the content and use your language that's comfortable for them. Say it straight. If you make it easy for people to understand, then we're much more likely to participate. But at the same time as well, you can't make it condescending, because as soon as you make it condescending, you'll immediately never hear from someone again.
And so one of the many ways that we do that is actually by getting young people to sense check our work before we send it out to other young people. Doesn't make sense. Have we gone too youth language on it? Have we started to get into that condescending territory? Or is this actually making sense? We allow space to interrogate our own communication before we communicate more widely. It's super easy once you're in relationship. Once you've got an Elliot telling you, definitely do not say that.
Yeah, if you're saying skibbity riz, that's probably not a good idea. Cool.
So I touched a little bit on the valuing of time, was also about creating easy access. So, but it's a principle in and of itself as well. It's really important to remember that in this environment that we're operating in at the moment, getting anywhere costs time and it costs money. And so how can we create access as easy as possible? Sometimes it's as simple as covering the bus fare for people to get to your engagement. Sometimes it's about going to them, to the spaces and environments that feel safest, most comfortable, with the people who also feel safest and comfortable for them too. Maybe it's going into marae, maybe it's going into schools, maybe it's going into libraries. Maybe it's actually getting young people to go and talk to other young people who feel more comfortable sharing some of the things that you want to know about.
For sure, for sure. It's also so important to make sure that what you're talking about connects to things that young people care about. Not everyone is waking up dreaming of influencing your strategic policy framework. Sorry about that. But there are things that young people do care about, and there are ways that you can connect your strategic policy framework, or whatever it is you're working on, to things that young people do care about. Things like climate, like whānau, like friendships, identity, and young people's futures. I love the exhibition in the foyer at the moment about climate change and sport, because that's relevant for young people, for sure.
And then if you've done all of those other things really beautifully and really, really well, you've got an amazingly engaged group of young people who have given you oodles and oodles of insights and helped you make your organization and your sport the strongest that it possibly can be. The most important thing that we must do is close the loop. Tell those young people how their voices have impacted what you are doing. Let them know the difference that they have made. And I tell you what, the more we do that, the more they'll show up. And it doesn't actually become closing the loop, it becomes keeping the loop wide open so that you can stay in relationship and you can keep doing amazing work together.
Totally. And even if the news is, we heard your advice and for these reasons it couldn't be implemented, that's still so important. Much better to hear that rather than just ghosting people. So these are our 6 principles. If you're going to take a photo of a slide, this is the one to take a photo of. If you are doing all of these, your youth engagement is already going to be in a much, much better place. We can pose if you want to take a photo with this. Cool. So youth voice isn't just one voice. It's as diverse and contradictory as all voice of all people. And so far in this conference, I'm one of the youngest voices we've heard from. And I'm nearly 25, so I don't really count that much. So we thought that we would introduce some of our lovely young people up to join the conversation.
Mm-hmm. So I'm literally going to shout out to the young people who are waiting in the wings to join us and to tell us about how to engage young people. Sean, Mairangi, Lola, and Ethan, do you want to come and join us up on the stage?
And while they're coming up, a way that we like to open our hui often is with a meme, a tag yourself meme. So if you're unfamiliar, there's a group of photos, and your job is to pick the one that you feel most closely aligned to, and then we'll open the meeting with that. So if you want to talk to your neighbor, just really briefly, which one of these you're feeling most closely related to, then we'll hear from the panelists.
You got it? Okay, now that you've figured out who you are, let's hear what these four are feeling today. Now, all four of these young people have been working alongside Curative as co-designers, as peer-led insight gatherers, as truth tellers, as designers, as makers, as dreamers, as social innovators. Most of them since they were maybe 16, 17, 18, 19. And so we've had years and years of working together. So you've done this meme activity probably too many times to count, often with animals. Sean, tell us who you are and tell us what your vibe is today.
Well, I'd say I'm the John Key three-way handshake today. I feel like for context, university trimester 2 has just started. This is my final trimester of my bachelor's studies. I do not have any idea what I'm going to do post graduation. So the kind of meeting of different potential ideas and pathways for me feels a bit like the John Key three-way handshake at the moment. Second only to that, though, is Mr. Carter there, because I'd like to think I look that good.
You do, Sean, you do.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
But tell us also who you are, Sean, and where you.
Oh, sorry, team.
Yeah.
Well, kia ora. My name is Sean. As mentioned, I study at university currently. I'm based in Wellington, although originally from Auckland. And I've had the privilege of being roped in by Eddy for Curative's mahi, youth mahi, particularly the Hive. It's such a privilege to consider Eddy as a mentor to myself, who is one of the wisest people I've ever met. So thank you so much for emailing me one day and saying, hey, here's the Hive. Don't know what it is, but let's get you involved. So I truly owe a lot. Also like to thank Sports New Zealand as well. Like to thank the Takina staff here. In particularly the member of staff who told me last Tuesday when I arrived that there was no conference that day, and actually I'd arrived 6 days early for this conference. So if you're working with young people, those are the kinds of messiness and embarrassing moments you can expect. And as with most embarrassing moments, I thought what to do if not tell a room of 250 people about it. So thank you all for laughing with me and hopefully not at me. So kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, ko Lola tuku ingoa. What am I feeling like today? The snowboarder doing a flip. That's how I'm feeling about sitting up on the stage. Probably my stomach more so because I'm pretty nervous, but I can see lots of welcoming faces, so I'm also really excited. Yeah, kia ora koutou katoa, ko Lola tuku ingoa. My name is Lola. I'm 17 years old and I live between Whanganui and Pōneke, but my ancestors are originally from Scotland, Ireland and England. Yeah, I'm a season 5 hiver and I'm really privileged to have met Eddy and Elliot and the season 5 hivers earlier this year to work on engaging young people and sharing youth voice with decision makers. But outside of that mahi, I run 2 youth organisations.
She runs 2 youth organisations.
I run Create Happy Media, which is the largest youth-operated media outlet in Aotearoa, and I also run Gen Z Aotearoa, which is a youth organisation focused on helping youth organisations to thrive. Bit of a roundabout there. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Ethan toku ingoa no Oamaru ahau, ko Te Whanganui Ātara toku kainga, ko Kaitahu me Ngāpui toku iwi. Kia ora, my name is Ethan. I'm a season 2 hiver. What I'm feeling today is a mix of the awkward handshake, but to me that represents collaboration and a lot of the conversations sparking today, but also similar to Lola, probably the stomach turning. We were told we were going to be speaking to over 250 people in suits, so I'm glad you're not all in suits. But great to be here, and thank you and massive mihi to Eddy for setting this up. It's been an interesting few weeks, particularly in the context of what the Hive looks like, but just wanted to mihi to you for allowing us to be here and to support New Zealand as well. who I am. I'm originally from here, Porniki, but recently moved back as I spent some time down south. And I study here, I work here. I chair a charitable trust which is led for and with rangatahi to educate young people on some of the social and environmental issues of today. But really excited to be here, and I think that's all I needed to say.
You nailed it.
Okay, perfect. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Maringi toku ingoa. I'm from Gisborne, but currently living in Wellington, studying a conjoint degree, doing a Bachelor of Law and Bachelor of Science, majoring in data science. I was a member of the Ha Collective a few years ago, and since then I've done a few other projects along the way. I was also part of the Youth Advisory Group Te Wakaame New Zealand, and also a Te Pai Whakatere member of Hawaii Ho. And if I was feeling like one person today, I think I'd have to go with the GOAT, Dan Carter. I'm looking to the future, I'm confident, and I've got a six-pack underneath my shirt.
Awesome, kia ora.
Sorry, could I just... Sorry, I also forgot I'd like to introduce some of the other mahi that I do, particularly that ties into the kaupapa today. Recently started volunteer role as the National Operations Officer of the United Nations Youth Association, which ties in quite well with the non-traditional education that is often offered through sports and community groups. We definitely try educate young people on global politics and affairs, although in the classroom through a more non-traditional kind of participatory way to equip young people with the vocabulary and skills for those spaces, which are often quite closed off to young people and is something that is also core to the kaupapa of the Hive and Curative. So thank you.
Kia ora. So, I mean, it sounds like we just went out and found 4 young people who are doing extraordinary things and are already hyper engaged with their communities. But the truth is that most young people are actually engaged in some way, shape or form. Sometimes really proactively, like these 4, and sometimes maybe a little less. Sometimes they need cajoling. But these are 4 of about 100 young people that Curative engages with regularly, so that we can always kind of tap into communities and understand what's really going on for young people. What are they really thinking and feeling, and what do they really need? And it's young people like these 4 that have helped us design our ways of doing that well and fun and uplifting and meaningful ways. So we're going to throw some questions. What do we want to ask today, Elliot?
Well, I'll say first, we are using the app as well, so do feel free to fire your questions through there. But, Lola, I have a question for you. What do you think that why do you think that young people's voices and experiences are important to consider in decision making?
Yes. Well, like was mentioned before, we are all experts in our own lives, and young people are the only people that can speak on their experiences, full stop. I think you cannot design systems for us without us, right? When you put young people into a room and you listen to them and you hear them and you respect their voices, that is the first step towards meaningful youth engagement. And without those people in the room, the thing you're creating, the policy you're designing, the program you're starting is never going to work. That's unfortunately, for your budgets maybe, that is the truth. But when you grow up in a world on fire, as Greta Thunberg famously said, our house is on fire, you do not get to be carefree. You get anxiety, you feel anxious about the world, if you're not listened to, if you're not protected, if you're not heard, you get frustrated. And I look to the meme that was on the screen earlier about please don't Instagram in a fire evacuation. We've grown up in the fire, and the fire is already here, and the institutions that continue to belittle and shame young people for things like that are the ones that light the fire itself. And so if you're not seeing the young people in youth-led organizations calling out injustices, using social media to create change, if you cannot see that, then you're not looking in the right place. I don't think that Gen Alpha fears no Wi-Fi. I think that they fear being shut out of the systems that are not designing for us. And whether we're invited to the table or not, or whether we're being listened to or not, whether we're being paid to be there or not, we are still here and we're still creating change in our own communities. So I don't think the question is really why should we be listening to young people, or why is it important that we're listening to young people. The question is, why are you not already listening? That's my answer.
Kia ora. Yeah, thank you. Sean, considering some of the things that we've shared, do you have any examples of where you've seen youth engagement in action and why it's so important?
Yeah, well, talking just off of what Lola was talking about in terms of social media, some of the work that we did through the Hive was engaging with government on social media content regulation. And I think there was the need recognized throughout that process that young people don't need simply more education. To offer up just simply education to young people are offered plenty of education already, is that young people have got to be curious about the things that you're putting on the table to get their feedback on. And we saw a willingness from our partners in government to come along on that journey with us, and I'm very appreciative that the way that they saw it was more than just our young people and these phones. Young people and the internet, young people as just simply consumers of content rather than also creators of content and agents in the digital world as well. The piece of Mahi wanted to focus on sometimes the negative aspects of social media content and the influences of digital regulation. And what we saw was that there was a willingness from the partners that we were working with to understand that while, of course, young people are always on social media, young people can and do critique the way that our social media environment is set up. So that's, again, focusing on young people, not just as consumers of content, but as critical analyzers of the media world that we find ourselves in. So acknowledging young people, particularly in a sports setting, as not just consumers of the sport or mahi that you do, but active participants in it as well. For those organizations that have boards, why not get a young person on your board? Why not have two? More, because young people will be taking up the governance layer roles in the future. Why not train them now? Young people need that now in order to take up those spaces. So I ask of everyone here, please consider roles like that are kind of participatory in your internal processes. A lot of the time, organizations establish youth advisory groups or youth advisory panels. Personally, I'm not entirely sold on that. I think that just treats young people as a mouth that can talk, rather than integrating them in the participatory processes of how your mahi, how your organization operates. So acknowledging that young people can provide perspective, I think, is very important, but in order for young people to continually engage with what you're doing, they have to see that feedback, they have to close the loop, as we've outlined. So making sure that there's a participatory process there, I think is really important in any mahi, particularly in sport.
That's so great, Sean. I heard you there say it's really important that we help elicit curiosity for our young people, but I also heard you say it's really important that we, as adults, show up with equal curiosity, that we don't come in with our own preconceived ideas or our own biases, or often our own judgment of what young people are thinking and doing. So that, like, curiosity needs to meet curiosity, and then actually create an environment where you can all learn by doing. So not just, please give me your advice, and maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't, but actually how do we learn from each other by doing something together? Is that what I heard?
Yeah. It's just got to, with the feed us kind of principle, is that young people can offer up their perspective, but part of the feeding back, the feedback loop is to make sure that they're not just consumers of your ideas, but are actively contributing to the curiosity that starts the kind of group idea process, if that makes sense. So being part of the conversations for change at the places where they happen is what you were saying.
Totally. And there's nothing worse than a consultation where they pull in some young people and you realize halfway through that they've already decided what they're going to do, and they're just there because someone told them that you've got to have a youth voice on this. Yeah. Ethan, we've talked a bit about how to engage young people well, but what about when it doesn't go so well? Some people think that they're doing the right things, but for you, what are the red flags or the watch outs?
Yeah, this is a mean question because I have to tell you guys what you're doing wrong. But I think, and I've sort of identified 4 red flags that I have lived experiences with, and I'm sure many of us do. And I don't say this to necessarily critique, but if you have done these, that's okay. And a lot of what we're talking about today, and what you've already heard, may make you uncomfortable. You may not necessarily agree with it straight away. So I kind of encourage you to lead into that uncertainty and continue to try to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because often, a lot of the time, where good, I guess, rich engagement comes from when you have those really tough conversations, when you put your egos aside, sometimes when you put your budgets aside, and you can have those really direct conversations to really learn from the young people in your life about what it means to be young and how to effectively engage with them. So the 4 ones I've got is, the first one is tokenism. Never in my time have I seen a generation, particularly Gen Z, and many others as well, so dedicated and committed, but often never fed. More often we're volunteers than we're not, and it's not just because we're asked to, it's because we have to be. The system hasn't been built for a lot of us, so we have to get inside the system to shape it for us. And we talked, and we heard earlier a little bit about how the generations to come are becoming increasingly less impoverished. But I also want to acknowledge that even us 4 here, and Elliot included as well, because you are young still, we don't represent all young people. There is many groups there that continue to be disadvantaged, and many of them are not in this room today. So I encourage you to not just speak to one young person. Don't just bring one young person into a role and expect that that represents all of young people, because it simply won't. And like Sean was saying, if you want to bring a young person into your organization, don't just have the role because they're young, but let them feed into that role. Let them decide what that role looks like. If it's on a board, let them have a go at chairing your board and understanding, and continue to feed them. But that goes into my second red flag, which is not having any follow-up or feedback. You need to ensure that there is that feedback loop, so that when young people feed your organization, your kaupapa, and give you insights into their perspective, you ensure that you've let them know where that's gone, where their contributions have been insightful, but also give them the autonomy to allow you to use some of their insights to grow what you're trying to grow. Thirdly, as we've heard already, is not to over-professionalize everything. I really wanted to tautoko the whole not showing up to a job interview in a suit, because that's really relatable, and being in the job market that we are in now, it's really hard to navigate what employers are looking for. But it's a simple thing like that, where sometimes we don't understand the long lists of acronyms or the jargon, and we also shouldn't have to. Being able to engage with you so that you can also engage with us means effective communication that works for both of us. And finally, one that's becoming ever increasingly difficult is only listening to the loudest voices in the room. I can say that because I'm a yapper. I love to talk, but it's also what makes good leadership is being able to pinpoint and set up a platform and a space where you can listen to those that aren't always uplifted. And I go back to my original comments of the people and the young people that aren't in this room right now that need to also be represented and heard at the table. Those are the people we need to be going to, and we shouldn't always expect them to come to us. So that's all I'll say for now, but again, good, effective communication and engagement with young people should make you uncomfortable, and that is okay. That is all part of the learning journey until you eventually have those core young people in your teams, in your communities, and in your spaces to be able to continue to hold you account, but also for you to be part of that journey with them. And that's what will make us all the better for it.
Hey Ethan, so you're supposed to feel uncomfortable, but you're allowed to have fun with it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's, I guess, the gem out of once you build these relationships. And I think what we've seen perfectly through things like the Hive, Protect Your Breath, is when you can really understand what those critical key boundaries, but also those areas that are going to set you up for success, that makes everything a lot easier and a lot more fun, and you can actually enjoy the kaupapa that you're in.
Can I just add on to that as well? Is that often young people coming into these roles of influence and leadership, they start out bringing the energy and the passion that they have, and it's also your responsibility to make sure that when they leave that role, they still have that energy and that passion that they had when they came into that space, and don't leave them drained from what inspired them to get involved in the first place, I'd say.
Totally. Yeah, we talk a lot of badge engagement is extractive of people's time and energy and thoughts, whereas relational is really what we're going for. Mairangi, if you were leading a sports organisation in New Zealand, as some of these people do, what is one way you would think about involving young people in it?
What a fun question. If I was in charge of a sporting organisation, I guess my answer would come in two parts. First is the structure. We've talked a lot about different ways rangatahi can be involved. It can be through an advisory group or possibly a seat at the board. Either of those are good starting places. But what's really important is that it's more than that. It's meaningful, it's full engagement. They're constantly strung along and they're not just given little bits of information to ask questions. The worst kind of engagement are the ones where you just ask a question, take the response, and that's pretty much it. Engagement is more than that. So yeah, the structure. And it's important that the structure isn't just from the bottom. The structure has to be from the bottom to the top. You need youth engagement throughout. Because it often feels like, as young people, that our voices get muffled towards the top. It's like a funnel tipped upside down. Everything just sort of gets muffled until it's this one simple sentence. Like, this is what summarizes all of youth opinions. This is what they think. This is what they feel on this issue. That's it. Let's take it. Let's run with it. Let's make a campaign about it. So it's important that you have that structure. But secondly, the culture. It's important that you have a culture that's purposeful, genuine, and responsive to youth engagement, youth voice. Without one or the other, you sort of just have this weird space where it's empty and shallow. When you have the structure without the culture, you've ticked a quota box. But when you have the culture without the structure, what you have is tokenism. You've just got empty words said in a very short space. And that doesn't really mean anything to anyone. So my answer would be just having those two things operating concurrently. But to touch on Lola's point, it often feels like, particularly with the structure, that you just get a lot of, you have this weird analogy of like a bunch of lions or tigers sitting around a table asking yourselves, how do we get youth engagement? How do we get an antelope here? When all you've done in the past is scare them away. So it's really important that you have youth around a table, speaking, collaborating, listening, talking, just having that real good, genuine partnership.
Awesome. Yeah, kia ora, totally. A great question coming in from the app is that we've heard technology is important for youth and is a huge tool for connecting. How do you bridge the gap for youth living without access to technology and ensure that they are also involved and engaged? That's from Megan, from 21.
Easy, eh? I mean, I'll jump in and then you guys bounce off of me, okay? I think a really important distinction, and this is what these young people have taught me, is technology is ubiquitous in their lives. Technology is a tool that they use to communicate, to connect, to learn, to understand what's going on in the world around them. They don't think about technology in the same way that some of us who are a bit older do. That it's just always on. It's a tool. And so there is no distinction between having technology or not having technology. But equally, the question was about what about those young people who don't have as greater access to technology? Well, they'll still be doing those same things, but they'll be doing it in their community. They'll still be using their social network, albeit offline, to learn, to connect, to understand, to make sense of the world around them. And so it's on us, when we're engaging any community, to understand what are the tools, what are the channels, what are the mechanisms that people are using, whether they're young people or whether they're our kaumatua. Not making assumptions that because they're from a generation that's all about technology, that they're definitely using it. So that's kind of something that I've learned a lot from you guys, but anything else you want to bump on top of that? Particularly, I know Mairangi, you're from Gisborne, not a huge amount of technology always enabled down there, especially in after the floods, and Lola being from Wanganui.
I was just going to say, like, just create opportunities both online and offline. Like, it's as simple as that. Just, we aren't all online. We're not all addicted to our phones. We don't all scroll TikTok for 3 hours a day, right?
Some of us do.
If you, some of us do. But if you're creating the same opportunities online as you are offline, then you can create the same opportunities offline as you are online. Like, it's not that hard. Sorry, that was mean. But also, we really deeply value in-person connection. I know I do. It's so important to me to see someone's face and interact with someone with them and alongside them. And so just start doing things in person. Sport is a recreational physical activity, and that's like an excellent way to start.
Yeah, totally. And we find as well that like a lot of the in-person, face-to-face engagements, you get much richer feedback and much more depth. Yeah, Mairangi, are you going to?
And I think technology is just a way to make it more accessible or easy to engage with young people. But engagement can be easy and accessible in other ways. I know Curative, for instance, a lot of our engagement process was just asking other young people to draw how they feel. Draw what they're feeling at the moment, draw what they think about a topic. So engagement can take a lot of different forms, and you can just be creative with it. Drawing, for instance, is just really easy, really accessible. It takes 10 seconds. You don't really have to think about the words. Are you using the correct noun, verb, adjective? Is your punctuation correct? So yeah, just be creative in terms of how you engage with young people.
Totally, yeah. There's another question for you, Mairangi, from Kylie. Do you see the voice of rangatahi Māori in decision-making spaces? What can organisations do to engage more effectively with rangatahi Māori? $1 million question.
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Do you see the voice of rangatahi Māori in decision-making spaces? And what can organisations do to engage more authentically with rangatahi Māori?
I think the answer to that is probably no. For instance, this isn't sports related, but I sit on the academic board for Victoria University, and the Māori students, we're given one seat at that board, and that's with all the staff, the other student representatives, and we're guaranteed one seat. So the answer to that question is there enough Māori rangatahi engagement? The answer is no. But to be authentic is the same way you'd be authentic with any other group, whether it be Māori or young people. It's being genuine in your interactions. I know with some iwi in terms of how we interact with them, people will often start the process before they've even engaged with iwi. So it's involving them very early from the start of the process all the way to the end. So yeah, I think that's how I'd answer that.
Yeah, kia ora.
Oh, beautiful. I told you they were smart. And can you imagine designing a way to involve young people without having the smart opinions and views of young people like these four in the room after hearing from them? Because I know I still can't. So thank you for. Now, in the spirit of co-designing and co-creating, on Friday, Sean actually called Elliot and I with a bright idea. And because we like to listen to anybody's bright ideas, we thought we'd throw our last 2 minutes back to you to have a quick conversation. And Sean, remind me of the story. You told me that there's an organisation where there's a CEO who makes time every single week. It's scheduled into her diary to meet with young people. Is that right?
Yeah, no, this came off of an engagement that the Hive did with the Ministry for the Environment. And the Chief Executive, Vicky Robertson, on 2 occasions, made time with us just simply to talk with her and a group of young people. Once was on their long-term insights briefing, but the second time was just simply to hear, let the young people on the call control the agenda and simply hear what they had to say. And that gave me the idea of throwing it back out to everyone here and saying that if you can't find at least 4 or 5 young people that care about the work that you do, that you can hear from, then that's your first task. If you can, then fantastic, book a meeting with them right now and set the agenda, or let them set the agenda to hear what they think of your mahi. Was the idea that I phoned up with, and these smart people have probably turned that into something fantastic, so I'll pass back to them.
A slightly more single-minded question. What's one thing that you can do right now to centre youth voice in your mahi? We really want you to take that question into the lunch break, into your kōrero that you're having with others. And we, mostly these guys, are going to be here for most of the day. So if you're looking for some advice, you're looking for some inspiration, you want to check, sense test an idea that you might have, come and have a kōrero. We'd love to hear from you.
And that's about us. So to leave you, mā te rangatahi te ao e ārahi, let youth lead the world. Thank you very much.
Ngā mihi.
Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou katoa. Thank you so much for you beautiful, brave young people for being on the stage. I know that you would have challenged many within the room, but I love that, and that's the whole point, right? Is to be able to lean into that uncomfortableness and then ask yourself, why do I feel a little bit uncomfortable about what they had to say on the stage? So just on behalf of everyone in the room, thank you so much. As I say, bold, brilliant, Lola, Ethan, Mairangi and Sean, and can we also please put our hands together from Curatives, Eddy Royal and Elliot Blythe as well.
Indulge us for 1 second. We just want to do a quick selfie on a phone of this audience. Yeah?
Yeah.
Sit, stand, do a face, do a pose, do whatever. Any advice, you guys?
And take note of the 0.5 technique for taking a selfie. 3, 2, 1.
Big smiles! Woo!
Is it good? We got to check. It's good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Brilliant way to head into lunch. So lunch is going to be served just out here in the main foyer. But and you would have already seen it, but if you can just take a moment to explore the exhibition, it is called Out of the Darkness. And it's a powerful collaboration between local photographer Josie McClutchy and Professor Holly Thorpe from the University of Waikato. And it shares the voices of tai rāwhiti rangatahi through sport and photography, capturing their experiences of climate change, resilience and connection that took place after Cyclone Gabrielle. So please have a look at it. I believe that we also have, I think Holly Thorpe is actually here from the University of Waikato, so if you come across her, have a chat about that display that's out in the main foyer. So on that note, enjoy your lunch, and I look forward to you all being back here in around about an hour's time at 1:15. Kia ora tātou katoa.